Too soon? I'm just gonna leave it.
Oh, it is 5 o'clock. I'm watching.
I usually wait till you say something. I don't know why I got ahead of myself.
Okay, it's 5 o'clock. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. We'll begin with the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So now we'll go ahead and open the meeting for public comment. Public comment, please limit to 3 minutes per person. State your name, where you're from, and is there anybody in the room with public comment?
Commissioner Brian, do you want, since Danielle with BMAC is here
Mhm.
and her request was late, do you want to wait until we're discussing housing, which is kind of what it's about, or do you want her to do it during public comment?
Let's go and do that during housing.
Okay,
That'll be good. So no public comments in the room. We'll go and go to Zoom. Any public comments on Zoom? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and go into our agenda items, beginning with administrative items. Starting with approving the minutes. Have commissioners had an opportunity to review the minutes?
Yes, sir.
Any questions or changes?
None that I can see. I didn't see any.
None here either.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for June 2024.
Second it. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes, minutes approved.
there's a copy for you to sign there.
And with those minutes, I like the bolded
Yeah.
topics.
Okay.
That was pretty slick.
I think they're always
So,
are. I
It
didn't-
just was,
Okay,
with all of
it
the
just-
stuff on there, it
it
just,
just
I was
caught
like,
your eye.
I don't know why
Okay.
it caught my eye this last time, and I was like, but I just was like, I make sure I tell you, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's go and review the monthly budget report and approve the vouchers.
Okay, so. Interesting items on the vouchers, or unusual, I guess, whatever you wanna call it, is we have. A couple of music payments for food stock to Kyle Terry and Vintage, pretty low dollar. They're on there. Leasehold tax to the Department of Revenue, it is. Much increased over the normal amount due to the fiber
Okay,
lease. It's the fiber leasehold tax. And then Game Inc., weird name. That is the contractor that was constructing the bridge or doing the work on the bridge on Rose Gulch that extended the fiber connectors on the bridge for us, so we could connect the fiber to it and go across the bridge. And we had to, that's the county's contractor, and we had to pay them
okay.
to do it. So that is who Game Inc. It's not that we bought $16,000 worth of like video games or anything.
I was wondering.
Yeah, no kidding. So was I. I was like, Tracy, is that really their name? And then Quality Signs is the other half of our public market sign.
Right.
And then the Department of Commerce, please note at the very bottom, $53,000. That is our annual payment to the Department of Commerce for the purchase of the Bell Farm.
Okay,
And it came in after we sent this out, but it's due July 31st.
okay.
So Tracy went ahead and added it at the last minute so we could pay it in time. And that is the only interesting things on the voucher list.
What is Strategy Northwest?
That's Veronica.
Oh, okay,
That's the,
right.
and so we are paying her, well, we can, let's look at the financial report and that will, we can talk about that at the same time. If you note on the expense side under advertising, we are at 85% of our budget for the year, even though we should be at 58%.
Right,
But if you recall, Jill got a $10,000 grant from the Washington State Department of Tourism to pay Veronica extra money to do the everlasting content, the pictures, the brochures, the things that she's working on.
okay,
So there's revenue to cover that, those extra expenses. And that revenue shows up in the miscellaneous, in the revenue side, it shows up under other grants. We got it in May, that's that 10,000. So, and then, because I was kind of going through this and looking at the percentages, just I like to check and see where we are. We have a real disparity between office expenses and office supplies and office equipment. One's way low and one's way high. So Tracy and I are talking about, it must be just how, it's different things are allocated. We have so much software that we pay online monthly subscriptions nowadays instead of
Right.
buying outright, that I suspect it's just being put in a different category than it had been the last year. Telecommunications is higher than we budgeted by a little bit, and that's because we upgraded to the new fiber at Blue Mountain Station. The broadband infrastructure is at 84.5%, but we are almost done. We have, I think we've got, we won't even probably spend the rest of that money, so
Okay.
that's gonna be fine. Broadband maintenance and operations, that one's at 66%, just slightly higher, but that's because the income is higher. And the amount that we pay Petrichor for maintenance and operations is a percentage of income, so it's up, just like the income is up.
Right.
And then the special projects, that was, bike trail money that was expended this year, the design
Mhm.
that we wanted to be done last year, so we didn't have a line item for it, so that goes there, but there is income that offsets that.
Okay.
So those were the only categories where we seemed a little higher than where we should be.
Right.
You know, there's plenty that were lower, so. And then on the income side, it really, oh, sure, yeah.
On our total budget, can we put the percentages down there where our expenses and our income show what percentage totals?
I don't see why not. Yeah, it'd be percentage of budgeted. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure we could.
That
Right
way
here,
we can
Tracy,
look
do you
at
see
very-
it? Yeah,
We can look at the very bottom. We have more money than we spent, or we have,
yeah,
yeah,
sure. Yeah, we have it on the income side. I'm actually
Yeah.
not sure why it's there. I would suspect it probably got accidentally deleted or something. Tracy and I were working on it yesterday and we changed so we did something, changed the color or did something, and suddenly the formulas weren't right anymore, so. Yeah, we can do that.
be great.
And then on the income side, we're all pretty good shape there. You'll note the interest income is much higher than budgeted. If it's a red number on this side, it's higher than budgeted. And then the fiber leases are doing very nicely. They continue to go up, so we're in very good shape financially right now. Feels like it anyway.
Good deal.
Okay, any other questions?
None from me.
And again, we don't make a motion to approve these.
No.
We decide that.
We do it.
We
Sign the bike voucher. I know. Well, it's always been a sign and not a motion. You guys can change it anytime you want, but
I just
that's,
sometimes go,
I just
want to make a
kind of
motion.
I followed what they were doing when I started in that regard, so. Okay, then the next, sorry, I'll let you finish up, ready to go.
And now we have a 2023 annual report.
Yeah, I think I talked about it at the last meeting, but I'd forgotten to send it to you.
Right.
So I sent it to you electronically. There's really nothing to discuss. It's all been submitted to the state. So it's just for your perusal. It shows everything you could pretty much want to know about us.
Right.
There's a few things that are not, even though I went through it with the accountant several times, there's a few of the tenant, where the lease money is allocated, like some of the Blue Mountain Station tenants are separated out, and some of them are lumped in with Artisan Food Center. Just a couple of those things, but other than that, it's very good. And then, I did finally get an email from the state yesterday that the federal audit I've been expecting is starting at the beginning of September.
Okay.
So I told them it was my first federal audit and to please be kind.
There's so much.
That's it, unless you have questions. We're happy to answer them
Very
anytime.
good annual report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very informative. Me being a new commissioner, I
Good.
appreciate it.
Yeah, it lays out all the debt, everything we owe, it's very,
Yeah.
it's very informative, yeah.
No questions for me. How about leases?
I don't think we have any this month, do we? No, none this month.
No leases.
Still all full?
We have
Yes,
one.
we did have the club give notice at the co-working center, so there's gonna be one small office down there that's gonna be open. But other than that, yeah, okay. And that is something we may discuss under the Mount Station. Possibly.
Okay, next we have the comprehensive park master plan. Anything more to discuss on that?
No, the two changes that we had discussed last time where we were gonna increase the amount on the pull-through RV project and the typo, Dina was, because the other entities, several of them had already approved it, but she said those were edits that could be made. So the new version has been posted on our website when we did the public hearing notice. So that's what will run our website when we do get that done. Yeah, but we do have to have the public hearing.
I do like the idea of having a map that we could get out to everybody, and I know that's in there.
Oh, having a
Yeah,
recreation map.
recreational map. that's,
That's what I've been talking to Jill and Veronica about, because I've always wanted to have a good recreation map.
I mean, you read through that, you go, wow. So, and I know those are out there, but I don't think that, you know, the Panjab Trail and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, the National Forest has its own map.
yeah.
When I was at the chamber, I used to hand out the National Forest map. I don't know if Melissa was there, but just because it's so comprehensive. But I think a lot of it has gone online, which is kind of hard,
It
you
is.
know? You can't access your cell phone everywhere in the mountains. You need
We
maps.
still have people ask about stuff.
Yeah.
And they like. they-
Yeah, yeah,
Like have something in your hand.
Yeah,
yeah. Okay, well, Jill's writing it down.
So we had the public hearing scheduled for quarter after. We need to wait for the time or can we start a couple minutes?
I think it's okay. I don't think that we don't have a room full of public excited about commenting, so
Right.
I think we're okay.
So we'll go ahead and go into the public hearing and take comments on the comprehensive parks master plan. Are there any comments in the room on your plan? No comments in here. Any comments on Zoom? Well, that was easy. Hearing no comments, we have a resolution in front of us for adopting the 2024 updated cooperative park master plan for the city of Dayton, Columbia County, Port of Columbia, Town of Starbuck, and the Columbia County Parks and Recreation Pool District. It's resolution number 2024-04. Do we have a motion to get this resolution?
I'll make a motion that we accept resolution 2024-04.
Second that motion.
We have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 2024-04. Is there any further discussion?
I just want to say I was fully impressed with it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, then we will go ahead and vote. All those in favor of resolution number 2024-04, respond by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes.
Okay, we need your signatures on that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, we'll go on to item number 2, update on port assets, starting with Rock Hill Industrial.
Okay, we've had, Tracy finally was successful in finding somebody to do the water test at the USDA Service Center. So Tracy came to work at 5:30 on Monday. I want everyone to recognize this. So she could open the building because they had to test the water
Mhm.
before anybody came in. And it has gone to the lab, but we haven't heard back. Okay, so that was a major undertaking to find somebody to do this, but then when she called the lab, they said, oh, is this for the GSA? So it's starting to other landlords are having to do the same thing, so maybe it won't be so hard. Hopefully, we never have to do it again. I don't know what's happening.
Mhm.
Um,
Coming in early.
pardon, what?
I said, thanks for coming in early.
Yeah, I know. She's like die hard. We've had one HVAC unit so far that we've had to call on since the heat came. That was it, just next door in the hospital building. It's a unit we have not looked at in decades, so. Or in a while, I don't know. So it's a new one.
So we don't have a preventive maintenance plan?
No, we don't. He asked about that at the last meeting. No, we have never, when I've looked at it in the past, it was kind of it seemed like a wash financially, whether or not to
Right.
pay for that every year versus the kinds of repairs that we had to make. So I don't know. I honestly don't know what the right thing to do is. But we told him we'd look into it, so we
Okay.
will. We'll try to look into some pricing.
I
Yeah,
have to have one.
Yeah,
Shit breaks down too often.
yeah, and it should be able to do a cost analysis on what it takes to repair one, replace
Yeah.
one.
yeah,
Or maybe-
Come out and change the belts and filters and make sure everything's running right, so you don't have those big expenditures. That's the process, so.
yeah. Well, our tenants are required to change filters. It's in the lease, yeah.
So we do have some sort of.
Oh, yeah,
That
mhm.
is-
Yeah, that is in the lease, yeah.
If it's within the
Yeah.
leases.
And then if it's a shared space, we change the filters. So we do a little bit that are our own.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I first started here and just saw how little we really had to do, I just didn't know if it would, and then, the things we have had to do were replacing units that were 20 or 25 years old, and a maintenance plan isn't gonna stop that.
Right.
Probably. But I'm not opposed to looking into it. I'm not. I don't wanna be, I really don't know whether it is,
The more refrigeration we have,
that's,
the,
yeah,
the better it is to maintain it.
Yeah.
To have to
Yeah.
replace it.
Yeah. Yeah. But we could certainly we'd have to write something up and do a request for, kind of like we do with landscaping, do a request for pricing. And just see what came back and see how it compared to what we've spent each year on these little repairs. But yeah, Tracy and I have been talking about it, so we will look into it.
Yeah, and then kind of a detail on, I'll probably have to go back and more, so look at some of the leases, what do they do? And say, all right, they cover all of that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's the minimum stuff, that's
Yeah.
great. And honestly, that takes care of a lot of those issues. Because what happens is they start overworking themselves
Yes.
and they get plugged up or dirty and that's what
Mhm.
breaks things. So if you can do just those little things, and if they're doing those things, then probably pretty good. And then just take a look at what the cost analysis is.
I mean, pressures on your freon systems and draws on motors and checking, bearings and stuff
Mhm.
like that, because you have a bearing go out and you lose the whole unit, you gotta replace the unit.
Yeah.
And all you had to do is know the bearing was getting off.
Yeah, it went from $55 to $5,500.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That happened.
Well, we've been very fortunate, knock on wood, that we've had very little, I don't know what's wood here.
Under.
We've not had big disasters, so maybe that's why, maybe I'm pushing my luck, could be. Let's see. What else? Anything else in the industrial park that I didn't think of?
Red Band's on.
Oh, yeah, the lighting. They're working on the Red Bed Cellars building right now, so that's progressing. I think that's about it for the industrial park.
Frontlines for Marina.
Okay, so I did get feedback from the RCO finally on the grant application, and it was so minor, I just can't even believe it. It was just a few things. But they do have some, some of their goal items, they're scoring, like health outcomes. I got a 1 out of 3, and it has not come to me yet how I would make this project have better health outcomes. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know. I don't know if I can improve that score or not, but so it is due, I have to resubmit the application by July 18th and then do another presentation at the end of August. So they didn't kick us out. They didn't say it wasn't eligible for that program. So that's a good step, good sign. And then the new concessionaires seem to be doing great.
Good.
There was a fire very near Lions Ferry, last week. On the 3rd, I think it was the 3rd. Was it the 3rd? Yeah, so I called out and checked on them and they did have to give all the campers a level 1 evacuation notice, just to be ready, but luckily the fire was put out,
Yeah,
so.
good.
And then the Swim the Snake event is coming up on. Anybody know the date?
August 14th, I think.
Oh, is it the 14th? Okay,
It's a Saturday, that's.
okay, yeah, so that is not an event we put on, but we do support that event, so.
Is it a Wednesday? Then it is the
Second
14th.
Saturday.
It's
Second
the
Saturday.
10th, must be the 10th.
Yeah.
Must be the 10th, yeah. So that's an event where people are swimming between the state park and the marina.
Right,
I think that's it for the marina.
okay. Move on to Blue Mountain Station.
Okay, so we got 7 responses to our request for statements of qualifications. So I have started interviewing the firms, so that is ongoing. We have a grant application we're turning in this week. And then Phil has been working on some grant applications for more funding for their project and our funding for the grain cluster. We've been answering a lot of questions for Mainstem Malt and writing support letters. So far, the CURB has sent the, I think it's called an Easy One form. It's the archaeological and cultural resources reporting that has to be done for the consultation that has to be done for the project, and they sent that to the tribes. And there's only been one response so far, and it was that they agreed that we did not have to do a cultural resource study. So, because we did one when we bought the site.
Right.
So I don't think we have to do another one. So
Good.
that is very good news. And so the only other thing I think we'll have to do, besides the resolution that you need to pass, is do the SEPA, which will take a few weeks, but I think that's the only other pre-contract requirement that we'll have to do.
Right.
So this resolution before you is absolutely Curb's words,
Mhm.
put in our form. And it is based straight out of the initial offer of financial aid, the numbers that they sent.
Right.
And so that has to be turned in before they'll sign a contract with us.
Okay, so then before us, we have resolution number 2024-05. A resolution of the Port of Columbia, Dayton, Washington, authorizing and directing the executive director to execute on behalf of the Port of Columbia an agreement between the Washington State Community Economic Revitalization Board, and the Port of Columbia for aid in financing the costs of public facilities consisting of the extension of utilities and construction of a craft ball processing facility. So do we have a motion to approve resolution number 2024-05?
Absolutely. I propose that we make a motion to approve resolution number 2024-05.
I'll second that motion.
So we have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 2024-05. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Resolution number 2024-05 passes.
Great, thank you so much. There you go, another signature.
Okay, that is for Blue Mountain Station.
That's, yeah, I think, well, the food stock is coming up on the 20th, so we've been, Tracy and Jill mostly have been working on getting ready for that, and doing the marketing.
All right.
So yeah, other than that, I think, oh, I know what I want to talk about, so we've had another inquiry for space there, and we have no space. And we have, one of our existing businesses is telling us that they will probably outgrow their space within 9 months to a year, if things go well for them, and that fits the grain cluster idea. We did budget money I budgeted some funds in architecture and engineering. And I'm wondering if, what you would think about me starting the process of maybe getting another building designed there that would not be for the craft mall,
Right.
but just for another building that would be for the grain cluster, maybe some storage.
Mhm.
And for these potentially one tenant and maybe even the other one.
I think it's a great idea.
Okay,
I agree.
I could start,
I think we need to look ahead.
yeah, I could start with the architect that helped with, the architect out of Spokane Valley, who's helped me with small projects, you know, it's not like a big expensive architecture firm that I think would probably help at a more reasonable rate. I could ask him for have a consultation and talk about pricing and
Mhm.
see what he can come up with, and then we could make a decision and move forward.
Yeah, we need,
Okay,
like Mike
All
said,
right.
we can be planning for the future.
okay.
We don't have anything now, we need to be thinking.
I know, it's just really frustrating, and I know we have to figure out how to pay for it and all that, but at least if we have a design, you know, some of these grants and other things that we've
Right.
run across, if we don't have a plan, we're not ready, so. Okay, I will look into it and,
Gotta have shovel-ready projects on
Yeah.
some of those grants.
Okay.
Don't get it.
all right, so we will begin that process then and bring something back to you to consider for design,
Excellent.
all right.
Let's go ahead and move on to the railroad.
Okay, I went down and looked at the graffiti cars and took pictures. I have not sent it to the sheriff yet, so I'm gonna continue to do that. I will continue to follow up. I did tell you during the, mid-meeting report that, the rail operator wants to do apply for a grant that would improve the crossings on 124. I think they're both on 124. But the port would have to be the applicant, so I've been talking to them about that and said that we'd be happy to do that as long as they are doing the work on preparing the grant application and all of that, so haven't heard anything more back from them. So then the appraisal, so I've been talking to the firm that did the appraisal for City of Tacoma,
Mhm.
and they're called RL Banks. I've had 2 teams meetings with their team. And so they have I don't have a firm proposal yet, but I've got some rough numbers that we can talk about just a little bit. So there's there's basically 3 different analysis. One is tract valuation. It's actually called net liquidated valuation. And that is that's kind of a basic cost analysis of the track itself and what it would be worth if it was liquidated. And then the other one is what's called going concern. And we already know that the traffic's pretty rough on this line, so it's probably not, a going concern price probably is not gonna be higher than a net liquidated valuation. But what they're recommending is a little bit less than a going concern. It's called a feasibility analysis. And it would give us some more information about the revenue being generated on the line at this time, which is something that with the number of cars that are being moved, it's not very feasible, but somehow it's operating, so
Right.
maybe it would help tell us more about the car storage or, you know, just more about kind of what's happening on the line.
Aren't they using the track from Prescott into Walla to move grain?
Very little,
Very little,
because they can't get to that
because they can't get out
facility,
to
yeah, to
the.
Port Kelly, yeah. I think they're doing some, but
Okay.
yeah, but this is what this would help us know.
Mhm.
And then the last thing, which is the most expensive part, is the real estate appraisal, which is because we have such a wide, right of way, the 100-foot right of way, the real estate it could end up having the most value of it all.
Right.
So, but it's all very expensive. So, there's a couple of different ways we could go about it. We could do the net liquidation appraisal value and the feasibility analysis. That would be $24,000, and the rail operator has to pay half. Then we would not be doing the land.
Mhm.
If we do the real estate, we could, for 30,000 more, we could get the ballpark true value, or it's a true value, but it doesn't have a detailed analysis. It's just a letter that says this is by this appraiser that says this is what it's worth.
Mhm.
And then if we pay 15,000 more, then we get the detailed analysis of where he got the information. So,
So 20,000 and 30,000 more is 50.
yeah, well,
50 more is $65.
the Cadillac here is 70. Yeah, the Cadillac is 70.
Right.
Um,
I think we need a Cadillac.
but if you decide to sell it, you have to.
Right.
Because we have to have it appraised by an MIA appraiser, so that's the question, see, we could do the two that are less costly. And see what comes out of it and then decide, or do the three and not go the last mile. And it would be, then we'd have all the appraisal, it'd be a better true value. So that's that's what we're trying to get at, is what is the value of this?
Right.
So that would be 44, 50, 55.
Right.
Yeah. So, but like I said, I don't have a firm proposal yet. These are the ballpark numbers that we discussed.
Mhm.
I told him I didn't think it would be an issue with the first two, but it was the third one that I had to,
Do we have the money to pay for it?
well, yeah,
How much was budgeted for
there was no budget for this,
even for?
but we have a,
Thought
we have a consultant line item, yeah, and it has.
Because we were pulling it from somewhere originally.
Yes, yeah, it wasn't like a firm budget, because we didn't know, but, yeah, hang on. We have $38,000 left in our consultant's budget right now.
And do we
So-
anticipate using that for something?
We've
Right.
done it, we've been doing a little bit out of it for grant writing, some help from Arrowleaf, but not very much, little bits. So if we did the 55,055, that'd be 20,
2075.
yeah, 20, yeah. That would be our share. So we can do that.
And also, if the rail operator is expected, they would have to agree as well.
Yeah.
To which ones we were gonna do.
Right, but he's the one who asked to have it appraised, so.
Yeah, I'm with you,
yeah,
but-
yeah.
Still gotta check that box.
Right, but it's our asset, so we are the ones, he is not, his motivation is not going to be as the same as ours.
Mhm.
Does that make sense? That's not a knock on him. I'm just saying we have different motives.
Right.
And we are the public, we are the keepers of the public asset, so we have more of a motivation to know the true value.
Mhm.
So, yeah,
I would like us to do the three, the first one you said, the second one you said, and then
the lower of the
the
third,
third,
Yeah.
yeah, not the
not the,
detailed.
right,
If we go
Yeah.
to sell it, we'll have to do the detailed, I'm
Yeah.
guessing, but.
yeah. But then we would know if we needed to, we don't need to do that
Yeah,
unless we need to do
and he
it, yeah.
goes, no, too high,
Yeah, let's see what they come back as officially, and
Mhm.
check it out. I'm leaning that way.
Yeah, and so, we can do this like a menu. We could have them do the first two. And see where that was looking before we did number three.
without the real estate value, though,
I
how
know,
would we
it's-
make any
I
decision?
guess that's true, yeah,
Right.
okay,
I mean, we're looking to make a decision to sell or not to sell.
Right.
We need the information,
right, that's true, yeah,
and he has to have the information to say yes or no to buy, or if we
Right.
put it out the bid, we at least have to know what we are expecting back.
right, yeah, because if we sell, we either have to sell it if we sell it for a negotiated price, it has to be appraised value or higher.
Yeah.
If it's not
Yeah,
that, it has to be bids.
bids.
Yeah, and this is yeah, like I said, this is the same firm that did Tacoma, and
Which he bought.
I like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like this firm because there's multiple people, so if anybody has a problem, we will not stop in the middle.
Yeah, we did figure a note in our files for that last person, right?
Yeah, he called me today, I feel so bad for him, he had a major cancer,
Mm.
is what happened. And was just out of it, so
Mhm.
I told him to take it off of his worries. We got it. He was worried about leaving us in a lurch.
Right.
And I just told him not to worry. We're all right.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to worry about this.
You gotta take care.
So what is, their turnaround time on this?
Oh, I don't know, I haven't asked that. I will ask that and get back to you. How does that sound? Because I did not ask that. I should have.
And it should be in the proposal too, when they.
Yeah, they haven't
Say,
said
hey,
it,
it's gonna
yeah.
take 6 months, 9 months, 3 months, 2 weeks, 2 days,
Yeah.
at this.
They
That's
may
pretty
already have
standard.
part of the information.
Okay. Thank you.
Moving on to broadband.
Yeah, all right, so still working on insurance for the broadband. I'm getting close on that with Petricor's help. We only have one more residence to go on the Touche Valley Broadband Project, and it is done. And then we still have to do final reports and get final reimbursements for both projects, so we will have some more money coming back to us. The BEAD funding, I did attend a very interesting meeting this week with the Washington Public Ports Association Broadband Committee, and they actually had the NTIA representative there to answer questions. This might interest Danielle. It was the first time I've ever really heard some of the things out of her mouth that led me to believe we not only have a chance to get BEAD funding, but they expect some application from our county somehow. And we don't have to necessarily do it in the first round, but they claim that they will not release the funds without every county in the state having some project that can be funded. It's just very complicated here because they expect you to cover the whole county. And I've explained to them that that's $83 million and they don't have that much to pay us. So they want us to come up with creative solutions, which
Starlink.
Starlink for all. But, so Petricor is still working on it, but it was all of us in the meeting were shocked. Because we have just thought this was out of our reach.
Right.
But she is guaranteeing that this is supposed to be internet for all, and they're gonna make sure every county has some proposal, or they won't fund anybody in the state. So, stay tuned. I'll keep it on the agenda. I know. It's complicated, but it was very interesting. Okay, that's it.
Okay. Next, we have community and economic development, beginning with staff reports.
Okay, well, All Wheels was successful. Jill and Tracy and I are exploring different registration options, trying to maybe move us into the electronic world. Maybe polling people kicking and screaming, but we're thinking about it. We've started brainstorming for our fair booth theme. The theme is hard, but Tracy's got a good idea. I had meetings with the Northwest Grain Growers this month, and they are gonna put in an application to the USDA or the WSDA's grant program. Also, they would like to expand their seed plant down here. And have asked for a letter of support, so I'm gonna write one for them. We went up to the Jasper Mountain Reserve. I told you that in the mid-meeting report. It was beautiful, very interesting. I don't know if you all know about it, but it's just outside of Dayton on Jasper Mountain, and this gentleman, it's on private land, and he has built 13 miles of trails, and they're just beautiful. And they're opening it to the public. You can pay to a day fee or a annual pass. They do have camping available. Just can't be huge RVs, but you could bring a smaller trailer, and beautiful campsites, beautiful. They've refurbished all the ponds. It's just very beautiful. It's very interesting. Beautiful wildflowers. It's I had no idea. I mean, the guys put in so much work on it. So it was interesting. And they've already had a lot of visitors and tourists like it. So, yeah. I will let Jill talk now. What do you have to say on staff reports? I'm done.
Yeah, so just kind of business as usual, continuing to meet with businesses, startups, and also just in-place businesses. And then obviously we are in a new fiscal year, and so with our ADO contract, we wrapped up the first half of the biennium, so fiscal year 2023. And so with that is the standard reporting that we always do at the end of each quarter, sorry, 19s. But I also had to complete a best practices report, which is a big long report on basically our big wins for the year. And then we obviously in our contract had to meet all of our goals. So I have to report, we met all of our goals at 100% or better. And those categories are business retention and expansion, recruitment, startup, export assistance, training, and we had to submit our marketing plan. So we are all good.
Nice.
And that's all I have.
And Jill does a lot more, but she just isn't very good at.
And I am trying to work on a recreation map, trust me,
All
but
right.
everything is very online, and very hard, but. I had a really good, meeting on Monday with some people with, outdoor recreation, and so they're connecting me to, the Forest Service and just other people that I don't have good contact with right now.
Cool.
So, I'm working on it.
Yes, it's on our list, definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah, Jill does a lot of work. She just doesn't talk about herself very well. Does a great job.
Thank you.
Okay,
All right, moving on to housing.
okay, so we have, we'll have Catherine go first. We have Catherine Witherington here, formerly of the Port of Columbia.
It's fun to be back.
Now at Common Roots Housing Trust.
Yes.
And then we also have Danielle Garvey with Blue Mountain Action Council, who they very much are in the affordable housing game and the workforce housing game. So we'll hear from Catherine first about Common Roots and what's happening there, and then we can hear from Danielle a little bit about their separate project. So I will pull up your presentation.
I'll move forward one chair. So, the Zoom folks will have an excellent view. Well, hello.
Hi,
It's fun to
hello.
see you all again and return. As I was getting ready to drive out here, my kids asked if they could come to drive around Dayton, and I was like, there's not drive around time today, but soon. But good stuff. It's a great opportunity.
Uh-oh, it told me that Zoom stopped.
Oh,
No,
Oh.
it's still there. Okay, let's try this again. It did, it told me that Zoom stopped.
weird.
Okay.
Thanks, Jenny, for the tech support.
Sorry.
This would be my first presentation in the new job, which I've been on the ground at for a week and 2 days. And I'm looking to just give you kind of an overview of what we do and what we could potentially do and how our organization could potentially partner with you or some others within Columbia County. And I brought along Joy with me, who was a founding board member of Common Roots. And if there's questions that I don't yet know the answers to, she will either know them or it tells me what sorts of things that I need to brush up on as I continue to dive into this role. So Common Roots is a nonprofit 501c3 as of last year with a focus on building and preserving permanently affordable homeownership in the Walla Walla Valley, which include Columbia County within our scope of work. I was thinking about this morning and this idea that it's easy to say that we build affordable homeownership, and of course, all of you know that affordable home ownership, affordable homes in general are a huge challenge in our region. And I don't want to talk about the challenges. What I was thinking about as I woke up is that for the first time in, I don't know, a while, my kids aren't in daycare and they aren't in school. So I'm finally getting to sleep in a little bit in the mornings. And my alarm went off this morning and I hit snooze. I never hit snooze, but I could luxuriously hit snooze this morning. And I'm laying in my bed, in my bedroom, and my dog jumps up on the bed with me and she kind of flops down. And she does that thing that if you're a dog owner or a cat owner or any sort of animal, you know this is so precious. She put her head over my feet. And I was laying there snoozing with this warm dog on top of me. And all I could think is like, that's what we're doing. We're not providing home ownership affordable opportunities, although we are, but that feeling of just peace and rest and safety is what our organization is looking to build more opportunities for within the entire Walla Walla Valley. So yes, we build and preserve permanently affordable home ownership, but we also help connect people with that feeling of safety. Next slide, please. So we are what is called a community land trust, and a community land trust model is a nonprofit such as ours that is focused on delivering affordable home ownership opportunities. We provide those ownership opportunities to low to median income of, so for us, that's between, low income, we consider between 50 and 80% of AMI. And for you in a rural area, we can actually go a little bit higher up to, I believe, 100, 120. 110, peek back at my support back here. And these can be home ownership opportunities or rental units or a variety of other uses. And we're governed by and responsive to the individual needs of each community. So as we're looking to build out, that's a piece of what I'm doing as I get started, is coming to all of you to hear what those individual needs are and how we can better tap into them. And so if you want to go to the next slide, I'll talk about how it actually works. Okay, so at its most basic bare bones, a community land trust owns land in perpetuity that we can use to develop community uses, primarily housing. A homeowner comes in and purchases the building, the home on top of the land. So it's a separation of ownership. We own land, they own the property. And this functions and it does two things. First, it removes the cost of the land from the cost of the house. And so automatically your home ownership becomes a little bit more affordable because you're not having to pay for that chunk of land up front. I looked at my house in Walla Walla this morning and the chunk of the land and the property ownership was $65,000. So that would have made the mortgage we put there a lot cheaper if I hadn't had to pay for the land. But the really magical thing about this is that it's not just a one-time opportunity. As a piece of the trust or the piece of the deed that ties together the land and the house, we also ensure that that home will be permanently affordable. So as part of the agreement of getting a below market rate house, the homeowner also agrees that they will sell that house at below market rate. They can receive a limited equity. It works out to about 1.5% per year that they can receive on the home if and when they sell it. But they agree that they won't for market rate, which takes essentially the speculative element out of the property purchase. It also ensures that the grants and the other funding that we receive for this is a wonderful one-time investment that maintains affordability forever. So we use subsidies, we use other methods to procure and build this housing. But once it's built, it's a one-time expense. We don't need to spend that again, other than to maintain, as you all were talking about, the maintenance of air conditioners. As we all know, once you add in the maintenance of buildings on top of that, it becomes a whole other expense. So yes, so broadly, a family or an individual purchases a home. It's more affordable because they're not having to pay for the land. They have a lease on the land. It's typically 99 years long. It is inheritable. It is renewable, so that if someone wants to pass this opportunity down to their children, they can, or if they want to, I don't know if they're still alive in 99 years. If any babies are buying houses, I guess, they would be able to renew that for another 99 years. And then, yes, that last little piece is about the homeowner agrees to sell at a restricted land price. So if you want to switch to the next slide, primarily this work is in affordable home ownership opportunities. However, a community land trust can also work with rentals. Land can be used for farming, can be used for commercial values, can be used for various community services. It can be a very adaptable method of land use. And this is part of what makes it really lovely to work with all of these different communities with all these different needs. We can adapt around that. So housing is definitely the number one goal, but especially with something like the port where you're working on any number of different things with this, that would be, that could be a piece of any conversation we might have. Next slide. So we are the only community land trust in this little corner of Washington state, but there's about 30 of them around the state. There's about 200 around the United States. Some are brand new like us. Some have been around for 30 or 40 years and have hundreds of properties within their profiles. And so for us, it's lovely to be joining into this network and be able to look at the vast resources that they've built up on how to do this and how to do this well, as we are continuing to grow what we're doing. I think I'm ready for the next slide. So this is specifically about Common Roots Housing Trust. In 2018, the idea of a community land trust was sort of being talked about in different circles. So it's something that came up in the process of the Community Council report on affordable housing. It's something that a few of these city council members in the Walla Walla were looking at. And it's a piece of the broader affordable housing puzzle. And as we were talking about it in 2018, that was what was being discussed. It doesn't solve everything, but it becomes a tool into the toolbox that might be really valuable. And so since that time, there's been a dedicated group of mostly volunteer people who have been shepherding that process forward. So in 2020, the Common Roots name was created, and it was housed initially as under BMAC as a fiscal agent, and so its own an identity, but was using them to help get us off the ground as a nonprofit. The first board of directors was elected in 2021. And as we're doing all of this, you'll start seeing some of the work that comes up as these things are happening. They're trying to form a nonprofit, but also look at land acquisition, look at how these projects are funded. All these pieces are being worked on throughout these years. And in 2023, they were finally able to hire their first executive director and become their own 501c3. And so then now we're really able to take off and running. And so the first executive director was a gentleman named Miles, who his partner got pregnant. And as those of us who have grappled with childcare know, sometimes you have to boot back to where family is. So he is stepping aside and I am stepping in and excited to see where it goes from here and helping our community understand this model and see what we do with it. So with that, there's a few specific things that I know we will need that I wanted to throw out to all of you and then open up the questions. If you want to go to the next slide, Jenny. So at the moment, one of our big needs is land. So much of the funding that is available to community land trusts only kicks in once you actually own the land or possess the land or can show that you will get this land if you get the funding. And so we are interested throughout the area in acquiring land. This can come through multiple factors. It can be donated, could be sold to us, ideally at below market rate. And I'm also just looking for leads, quite honestly. In Walla Walla and College Place, we have a lot of property developers who are aware of this project and who we can talk with and start to have those conversations with on what this looks like for them on the private side to sell land to us or discount land to us. Here in Columbia County, I know a few, and our board obviously has connections, and I have one or two connections, but those private leads are very valuable. And for you as the port, if this is something that would fit within the potential uses for any of the land you own, then that becomes something we can talk about as well. I'm also in a big piece of outreach. So you can see that around property owners and developers. That's both for the land and also for people who can eventually build this housing for us and help us do this work, especially in a community as rural as you all are. It can be very hard, I know, to find people who can come in and build houses. It's also something that just in general, we're wanting to let Columbia County residents know about. We've done a bit of a roadshow last year where I think we had a meeting back at Joy. I know we were on this side of the counties, but it's a different model and it's weird and doesn't always click with people who are used to property as a speculative market. And so to help people kind of better understand it and get to know it and how it may or may not fit the community, it's a big piece of what we're looking to do. As well as just connections with other local governments. As I was looking around at what the other Washington State community land trusts have done in partnership with governments, there's lots of different models. There aren't a ton of examples that I could find in which ports have specifically partnered with community land trusts yet. But there's both examples of ports partnering with other types of housing agencies, and there's a lot of examples of how cities and counties have worked to better connect a community land trust with the resources within their community. And that can look like, that gets me to my resources column. It's like I planned out this presentation. So those types of support can look like connections with infrastructure, waiver of development fees, things that might not necessarily fall underneath what you do, but that might help if we can help connect, if you can help connect us with the city, with the county, with those types of organizations where that might be something that's a little bit more in their wheelhouse and their responsibilities, that's super valuable. Partnerships on grant opportunities are key. Jenny's talked about a couple of letters of support that she's writing, and letters of support are amazing, especially since we are very much looking not just to check the box of a letter of support, but also show that the community investment in the idea of this work is really valuable to the community itself. We're not looking to build anything that isn't wanted or valuable to the community. So to be able to be a resource as we are looking for different state, federal, private grants that can support the work here, that's very valuable. And finally, this is not an ask today, but it's one that I will mention. Some municipalities will offer operational support, particularly, I was looking at MRSC actually has a lovely thing on on community land trust and on municipalities and how they can partner, and they have some examples in there. And so one of them was out of the Chelan Valley Land Trust, that in addition to getting some ARPA funds and some support like that from their city and their county, they also receive, I want to say it's $5,000 a year in operational support. So it's not what I'm looking for today, but it's something that it's of value in the future. That's another model that we are seeing in other community land trusts throughout the valley. So that is a very broad overview of the work we could do. I think my next slide is the question slide.
Yeah.
So I'd love to open up to questions and to hear what you think, and I will tap join as needed.
I have a question. Does the homeowner maintain the home?
Yes, so there are two, I'm gonna try and answer this, jump in if I get it wrong, Joy. So the general home maintenance is up to the landowner. But a piece of what we do as the community land trust is the stewardship of the land and the property on it and the person who lives within that. And so that's done through trainings like how to maintain a home if you're a first-time home buyer. But there's also generally things that are worked into our budget that allow people to either we'll have sort of a general maintenance fund. And that can be used in some models. We haven't done this yet, so we haven't set up exactly what this looks like in ours. But in some models, that is funds that are available when someone sells a house that they can't afford to fix it to the level we would want it to be for the next person. So we can use those retained general maintenance funds for that. It's also in some models funds that the property owner themselves can apply for under a revolving loan idea, where if they have to replace that $5,000 air conditioner and don't always have that money, they would be able to utilize those funds as well. So there's a few different models and we haven't set on any one.
So they're supposed to take care of it, but you're gonna make sure it doesn't fall into disrepair. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, my next question is about the rentals. I mean, because rentals is, affordable workforce rentals, I guess I would call it. And, the housing study that was done here said that we needed studios and 1 bedrooms is the biggest need.
Yeah.
And part of that is because the big historic houses, the 3-bedroom, 2-bath historic houses, a lot of them have one person living in them. And if that one person had a smaller, more reasonable place to live, then the bigger housing would be more available. So how would rentals work? Does it, the owner, how do rentals work?
Rentals are basically something that the land trust can go in and manage. So we can buy property, we can develop property, and we can rent them. Or if someone has a low income property or property that they would like managed, we can go in as the manager.
Low
of that.
income or just affordable?
Well, affordable, that's basically
Okay.
what we come in most at is workforce housing.
Okay,
That's what we're most concerned about is that we've
because
got,
that's what the port is.
right,
Yeah,
we've
that's
got people in our communities, nurses, teachers that can afford to buy houses.
Right, right.
And we want the people who work in our communities to live in our communities. So that's what our ultimate goal is to see those people reasonably lodged.
So the land trust would construct and own an apartment building.
We can do that.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Interesting.
And the same way with commercial properties, as Catherine mentioned, we can construct low-income business rentals for people. We can do that also. And basically what you're looking at is that subsidy, not only do we own the land, but if we get a grant to reduce the price of that house, so that we could get somebody maybe at the 80% AMI in there, then that grant that money resides with the land. So it's becomes a part of the subsidy, a permanent subsidy. So you're looking at this being a one and done. You know, we're not going out and getting money to house the next person. We have that subsidy and it's built.
And
into
it's
the
for
land,
the house and the land, not the
Right.
family.
not the family. But it does allow them to build generational wealth. Because that's how we do it in most cases, is we build generational wealth by homeownership.
Right.
And so it allows them to do that. So not only do they take the equity that they pay down, but they take the 1.5%, which is pretty typical for community land trusts. And that's a deal.
So
they
that's like you're saying it's appreciating 1.5% per year, okay.
And CLTs, homeownership in CLTs foreclose at less than 1% because of the stewardship. The good stewardship, which is much less than the average nationwide.
And I think if I'm remembering right, that number held true even through the 2008 financial crisis.
Yes.
Oh, so they've been around for a while.
Yeah, so community land trusts as a movement have been around for about 50 years now. I would say it's probably in the last 35 to 40 that you've seen them sort of solidify into the model that we work with today.
I was thinking the Port of Bellingham, when they did their housing, had a,
Yeah, so I looked into
Don't
that.
you have
It's,
one?
so the Port of Bellingham, I think is such a cool model, not because it would necessarily fit here, but with the, I know you're familiar. Should I give an overview? I don't want to
No.
like talk about the project if
No,
everyone's already
no,
familiar.
go ahead, no, go ahead.
Okay, so at a very high level, the Port of Bellingham partnered with, I think it was called
Mercy Corps,
Mercy something housing.
Mercy something.
And I looked briefly at the Mercy Housing website and I tried to figure out exactly what they were since they're not a community land trust. But regardless, the port, I believe, sold the land to them, but with the specific directives of we need multifamily housing, we need childcare, and we need a couple of specific commercial spaces. And so they were able to, you know, they're eligible for any number of grants that could help build that out, but it was under the guidance of, you know, with the specific things of what the port was looking for. Just as a side note, one of the things I have found so personally fascinating, those of you who know me know how interesting childcare and the challenge of it are to our communities. And I've noticed as I've dived into this work that there are various grants that give a community land trust extra points if they build childcare into their sites, whether as standalone locations or as part of a bigger project. And it's like, all right, let's just tackle all the problems all at once. So yes, the Port of Bellingham model is one that I think is really cool. It's not with a community land trust, but there's no reason a similar project
Instead
could
of
be
co-op,
replicated
maybe?
here.
Because we can do co-ops.
I honestly, the Mercy Housing is a national nonprofit that works with affordable housing, but I don't know exactly what.
So
model
we
they
have
have.
a number of burnt out houses
Mhm.
all throughout our community that
Mhm.
don't seem to be getting any attention.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, I just realized I didn't put that into the presentation, but our one of the things we can do is what's called scattered site housing, where we either work with a property owner to purchase a land or purchase a home they want and acquire it into our profile that way, or doing infill throughout the community. As we all know, infill can be its own challenge in terms of how you make that affordable. It's sometimes a lot easier to build or a lot more affordable to build a new area just because the work can be done in a very controlled way. But infill, in terms of empty lots for houses that maybe should be empty lots, is absolutely something that we can do.
And what's nice about that model is that you have people with different levels of income interacting adjacent to each other, so you have a true neighborhood feel. And the same thing can happen if we bought a land and built, say, 14 houses on it. We might consider selling 2 of them at 100% AMI or market value and use that money to help subsidize the other homes that we needed to do for affordable housing. So there's a lot of good opportunities to be creating.
Who pays the taxes of ownership, like,
Taxes
Homeowner
do
tax.
require some education to the assessors. But normally they are assessed at the cost of the housing only and not the land. So the homeowner still pays the taxes, there are still taxes paid, but they're not at full market value. Now that does
Because you're
require.
because you're a nonprofit. Who owns the land?
Not
Because they're
necessarily required
restricted on the
education.
equity.
Right.
So for a homeowner, if they buy a house for $100,000 from us, I'm gonna use very round numbers for the sake of my English degree. But that house is actually valued at 200,000, let's say, like the house separate from the land. So, but they're paying a supplemented or an underneath cost. We only want them to pay taxes on that 100,000, not on the market value of their land. Or not of their land, market value of their house. So as it goes up over time, over 10 years, that 100,000 house could become 120,000 in its resale for us. But it would be 300,000 on the tax rolls for the assessor's office. So that's a piece of the education we need to do, is we want to make sure that taxing is on the value of the house to that individual, 120,000, not on the value of the market, the free market.
And the county can do that?
Mhm.
And counties are doing that. That's,
How? Because there's some law or something?
I don't know that there's a law. I think assessors have some broad-based authority. And community land trusts have a historical assessment value that they utilize.
I'd be happy to look at that and find
Education.
out. It's
It's
not
education.
a piece I,
What about the
Yeah.
land? So you got the property, well, not property, I'm gonna say the dwelling,
the dwelling, I know, all this land is,
all right? Cause somebody owns the dwelling, so it's a dwelling for 100,000.
Yeah.
What about the land? Is that not taxed?
I believe since it's owned by a nonprofit, it would not be taxed.
That's not taxed. Then they have subsidized tax for the house that they got subsidized in the first place.
Yep.
Okay.
So you won't make as much in taxes as you would on a market rate house. You won't make as much as a government. You won't pay as much as an individual.
That one funding source would not be there, but obviously when you increase your population and so forth, you have other funding that comes to you by virtue of that. Including schools and so forth.
So it is a trade-off. There's pros and cons. But I think particularly when you're looking at sort of that missing middle, that workforce housing, it becomes a way to get people's feet in the door. I was talking about this yesterday, so this is a repeat for a couple of you, but I was looking back at the little rental that my husband and I moved into when we first moved here 10 years ago, and we rented it for $700 a month. It was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath duplex. He was making entry level pay at the Army Corps at the time, and I wasn't working, and we were able to make it work. It was hard. It was one of the harder years in our marriage, but we could make it work. And that same unit now is $1,500. Like we wouldn't have been able to come here, and we wouldn't have been an entry level person at the Army Corps, at the hospital, at the school district, at any of these, wouldn't have been able to live in the communities that we're in. And to me, it's, I bring that back to sort of that warm feeling of that dog with its head over my feet. Like that's the trade-off from slightly lower taxes on some of this land. And the limited resale value is we get that safety and that security in those places for people to get started.
And hope that that lifts them up and they can move on and.
Yeah, I want to say, if I'm remembering the statistics right, about 60% of community land trust homeowners will eventually graduate into the private housing market through their bill.
Within 7 to 10 years.
Is there an income? Okay, here. If someone is allowed to buy one of these homes and then suddenly their income goes way up, what happens?
I believe under our model, it's not like they get kicked out of their house. They own the house.
They still can only resell it at the agreed upon.
Yeah.
Formula.
So hypothetically, they could live in that house forever and pass it on to their kids and spend all their extra money in our shops.
Okay,
And are lending institutions willing to loan money on these types of?
There
houses?
are, including the big ones like your FHA loans and Freddie Mac and things like that. And we have probably about 10 local banks that are on board, or have local branches that are on board. And it's a piece of my work is continuing to educate lenders on this. So no matter what perspective someone's coming in from and who they're wanting to work with, they have options. We won't be able to ever say, you should go to Banner Bank, but we can be like, it's the local lenders that do this sort of thing.
So you don't currently have any property with those type of homes on in Walla Walla?
We do
or-
not. We are just getting started. So we have about 12 properties, mostly in the College Place, Walla Walla, that are potential. That we are just working to get the funds in place to actually purchase them.
So you don't have any properties currently? You've got some on fire, hopefully.
Yes.
We're really close.
Mhm.
I wish I could share with you, 'cause it's exciting, but really close.
Good.
So you just have to earn, you just have to raise money to figure
So-
out how to buy.
Raise money, we have to, and it's all the nonprofit early days stuff. There are a variety of ways to raise money. Of course, there's private donations and we're looking at that. And then there's a lot of funding through the state right now, and particularly the Housing Trust Fund that can be used to purchase land as a piece of it. We just need to show that when we submit those applications, that it's not like, we saw this piece of land and we think we can buy it, but we have a property owner who will hold it until we know whether or not we have those funds, through purchase and sale agreements and things like that. So, grants are definitely a big source. And as I'm getting up and running, Joy, this is a sneak peek of the board meeting this month. That's another piece that I'm going to talk about with our board is we need to be doing some private fundraising, some project specific fundraising to make sure that, when we can snag a piece of property for a down payment of 20,000, we have 20,000 to do it, or something like that.
Do you have a certain property size that you will not go below? I mean, would you buy a city lot? One lot?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I say that? I say yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, to
Okay.
give you an idea of the range, just of the ones that we're currently looking at, there is a single homeowner who's interested in selling their house and land to us at under market rate. So we would take that. We have properties that are, 5 townhomes, 7 single family homes, 32 single family homes. For our comfort level as a new organization, I'm really comfortable in sort of the 10 and under home range. If a golden opportunity for bigger than that fell into our laps, we would take it. I'd just like to get one project under our belts before we start biting off the big guns. So
And then how are you sustained financially?
at the moment, we have a handful of money that's from private donations, and we have an operational grant from a group called Catholic Communities,
I don't know.
CCHD is the acronym. And that funds essentially this position, my
Mhm.
position for another 2 years.
And then when you get it, if, let's say you got a housing development successfully completed, is there any revenue generated for you from that, or is it all just
So-
going back in?
There's a very small amount per month that's paid in a land lease fee to us. I believe we've set that at $50 a month. That obviously doesn't sustain organizations. Or sustain operations. And so from other land trusts I have talked with, they, sometimes the project funds that we get through the state funding will include sort of project funding for the staff person. They'll also do, as Joy was talking about, you can parse out at least some of the property for private, to sell on the private market to both help with subsidy and help with organizational funding. What else we got?
What
I was
happens,
just curious.
I'm just devil's advocate,
Yeah.
what happens if the organization is no longer an organization for 10
Yep.
years,
If it goes away.
right?
So
That property would, you got 10 houses on, now what?
Yeah.
Now what does that do?
the land is, first that will be either sold or donated to another housing authority or something like that, that can take it on, continuing as a public asset. If there isn't a local one that does that, it becomes a state asset. So it's owned by the state. It's still public, but it wouldn't be under the same model.
So
So
what happens with the people that have homes on that?
they have a 99-year land lease that goes with it.
Regardless of whether or not
renewable. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the lease, although I'm gonna see if I say this right and correct me if I'm wrong, Joy. Although we are like the signers of the lease is really between the dwelling and the property, not between the homeowner and us. And so if we disappear, we'll set up mechanisms as an organization that say, well, okay, now this goes to in Walla Walla, it'd probably be the Walla Walla Housing Authority. And if that doesn't take it, it might go to the city of Walla Walla, or it might go to BMAC, or some of these other organizations that are doing the same work, but the lease would live on.
I don't know any CLTs in the Pacific Northwest that have gone out of business.
Not saying he will, I just,
Yeah.
those are just questions.
It's a good question.
We're brand new, we're like a startup company, we could go out of business. No, I had that same question, and that's why I knew the answer to it, because I was like, well, darn, what would happen?
That's all I
Thank you
have.
for the presentation. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
One other thing I would mention is that we do have members of our organization too, and I would encourage anybody that would like to keep track, as we share with our members as much as we can share. Sometimes real estate, we have to hold back, just like you have to hold back. But on our website, commonroots.org, you can join as a member. It's a sliding scale. You can join for not $1 or join for the $35 membership fee. And that helps support us not only in monetary means, but kind of that rah support that we like to see and have to.
It's also, and this tells me this is a slide I need to put in the next time I do this presentation. The board is designed to be represented by 3 different groups. So low income people who could potentially move into the homes, general members of the public, and then members who are parts of public agencies. And so the idea is that when those 3 groups work together, you create a better product by having obviously the people who will live in it. That's great. And then having the people who will be the neighbors is also great. And then, of course, all of you are so valuable in that type of thing. And so when we talk about membership, that's also what we're looking for, is people from different backgrounds who are eager to be advocates for affordable housing. I'll hand off to Danielle.
All right.
Thank you, Catherine. It's kind of an interesting concept to wrap your head around, isn't it?
It's very interesting.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to join you. I know you've had a long meeting. I'm Danielle Garby-Reeser, the CEO of Blue Mountain Action Council, and we're glad to be part of Common Roots getting off the ground. We've been serving Walla Walla, Columbia, and Garfield counties for 58 years now as the federally designated community action agency. So it's our job to move people out of poverty and to move them into self-sufficiency. The big ways we do that in the region are food, housing, and job training. And I'm here tonight because of housing. So our housing programs run the full gamut of helping people who are experiencing homelessness all the way to managing rental property. So right now on the rental side, we manage 18 properties. It's 162 units across the portfolio. It's all families who are low income plus have some other needs. So it's senior housing, it's disabled adults, people with chronic mental illness, and families who were formerly homeless. And I've been coming to Jenny's monthly meetings for years. There was some time during COVID where I wasn't showing up. My previous role was at Sherwood Trust. And so I had seen great work happening here and was proud to be an investor in the community. And my favorite meeting was coming to the December meeting where the community would come together and talk about what are our needs and priorities. And year after year of the last 5 years, it's housing, it's housing, it's housing. So I think 3 of the last 5, it's been the number 1, and it's been in the top 3 of those years. And of course, it's very true across the whole area we've served. So BMAC actually built, bought, or remodeled most of the properties we have to date. We then built a youth shelter in Walla Walla, and then we built the office building we're in, and literally they moved in March of 2020. COVID. And so we haven't been doing building or acquiring a property since 2020. And when I started in 2022, I'm like, housing is a huge need in our community. We're supposed to be responding to the biggest needs in our community. What more can we do? So we've been on the look. And one of the opportunities that came up to us was the Knobloch Apartments here in Columbia County. So we are under a purchase and sale agreement now to buy the property. We have the opportunity for financing primarily for that property through the Housing Finance Commission. So that property is a 26-unit complex of 2, 3, and 4-bedroom apartments. It was originally constructed and opened in the year 2000 through a low-income tax credit program. So another tool in the toolkit of things you can do for affordable housing. That means that property is restricted to low-income use until 2040. So right now that housing, 50% of it has to be for 60% of area median income and 50% for 30% or less. And so part of managing a property is making sure that you're interviewing and screening people. The other part is that you maintain it. So part of what we're doing right now is our own due diligence on 2 fronts. First is putting together the financing package for the purchase. Part of the application requirement for the Housing Finance Commission is that we have letters of support from the community. So that's ask number 1 to you today, either from the commissioners or from Jenny. A letter of support would be great. We have one from the hospital, from Shane McGuire already, and from some current community members, and I'm on the agenda with county commissioners next week. So support in helping us unlock those funds. So it'll be up to $1.2 million for the purchase. The bigger question with that property is going to actually be the remodeling. The preventive maintenance has not been done, which anyone driving by could see, but I'm pretty sure if we asked your sheriff and others in the community, they might all have stories. So part of our interest really is in that mission space is people deserve the dignity of safe, healthy housing, and that property has not been kept up the way we keep up our other properties. So part of the feasibility we're doing right now is both on the purchase, but we also had an architecture team here last week looking at the capital needs assessment and what's that punch list gonna look like? Because it's a new roof, it's new windows, it's a new parking lot, it's new HVAC systems. People even last week had windows open, like it was clear there's not active
Lady, the
air
person that
conditioning.
lives there doesn't have any air conditioning.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it just shouldn't happen. So, so we're excited about the opportunity because this is our service area. We should be here helping in housing. We want to be a partner to the community and we want to provide high quality housing and doing that. So, as I said, the letter is then asked to the commissioners. The other is to help us with the down payment piece. We're also asking the county commissioners and others if there was an opportunity for the port to invest $10,000 in this. It would help show that community buy-in and help us defray these first costs of getting into the property. As I said, we've done this before. I have an awesome housing team, so we have the full staff that does maintenance and construction, other things. We've also worked with lots of subs in the community. So we would be looking at a full plan here of we're going to buy it and we're going to fix it up and make sure that, you know, we built the time into the purchase and sale agreement. So we make sure that pencils out, that we can do it right for the community as part of it. So that is my ask to the commissioners. I'd love to answer any questions you might have about our work or about this project.
Yeah, you touched base on always, my number 1 concern is helping people out, give them the hand up a little bit and help them along the way, but set expectations.
Mhm.
I'm not interested in fixing something up and having somebody go through it and not respect what it was or what it is or what we're trying to do as a community. And 10 years from now, it's in the same condition and we're doing the same thing over again. I don't think that does the individual or our community good. So the expectations and what the BMAC has and what the standards are, setting those standards and then maintaining those standards. You can have standards on paper. Here you go. It's policing those standards. It's training to those standards. It's following through with those standards. So that we are able to do that in that process. That's probably always my number 1 concerns in these type of settings. And that's a lot of community members. I mean, we want to help out, but we also don't want to turn it into either something that's worse or just throwing good money at bad projects. Because it's just a repetitive motion. How do we get out of that and move down the road to a better thing? So I do like the avenue of, or my understanding of what you are saying is it's controlled. It is evaluated. There's a process, there's expectations, and follow through with that. That's what I'm hearing. I don't know.
No, it's really important because it's challenging to be a property manager,
Mhm.
but we know setting expectations upfront and operating with respect, right? Like tenants should also, you know, have their needs met. It's not acceptable to not provide air conditioning. It's 108 degrees outside, right? They're gonna end up at the hospital with Shane, which is part of why I went to him to ask for a letter of support.
That's gonna cost us
Housing
more.
is healthcare, right? So having safe, affordable housing, and when you as the landlord show that respect of providing a high quality, clean, consistent environment, people behave differently, right? Than if,
They should.
yeah. And it's part of our job to follow the law and notices as required, and we do that across our.
And the other thing is the respect on the other side is, whether it's BMAC, all of this is funded by you, me, your neighbors, all of this grants, all of that stuff. And we're saying, we value the community enough that we're gonna take what we earned to provide this. And when you go knocking holes in walls or busting out windows or selling drugs or whatever it is that happened in those, it is disrespectful to those individuals that put that in place. So that's kind of my thoughts on some of those, what I've seen on some of those. So that would be my only concern, and not only, but that's the big one, for me, is to be able to sign off on something like that would be understanding that those are in place.
Yeah.
For that.
It's really important to manage it well for everyone.
I worked with BMAC in College Place when I was fire chief there, and they really do a good job of managing and do have some things set in place to take people out of the situation if they become unmanageable. And I've seen that. And so I would be at 100% support of the letter of support. I'd be at 100% support of the 10,000, because if we don't do it, it's just going to get worse and worse over there without somebody like BMAC managing. It already is pretty bad, and it's becoming dangerous. Not just because of no air conditioning, but other issues it has. So we can end up with a vacant lot after they burn it down, or we can invest in the future.
I guess my concern is that it's still gonna be the same people that are there. The ones that are potentially causing issues or dealing drugs, because that seems to be a lot of the complaints I hear on the internet is drug activity coming from there. And it's not like the MAC is a legal enforcement agency to be able to really curtail or control that. So I don't know that there's going to be a lot of change other than the management and the improvement of the actual dwelling. But you're still gonna have the same issues with tenants that don't want to follow the rules. I also know in Washington State, it's very difficult to kick somebody out of a rental just because you don't like their activities and what they do. And short of them, not paying rent, which most of it is subsidized by different agencies anyways, there's just not a lot of recourse that I see available to be able to make a positive change. The other thing being, we're a small port with a very limited budget, and our entire community support budget for a year is $10,000, and if we completely wipe that out and not leave money for other important community support. I think it would be nice to see these apartments under better management. I think that the MAC could do a better job than what's currently being done. And I do support that endeavor. I'm just not confident that the $10,000 investment from us is going to see a real big return on it, so.
The good news is I'm not asking you for 1.2. So you're able to invest 10,000 and help us unlock 1.2. We have to show local support in the project to get that other money. I want to really address your concerns on the property, and you're right, it's challenging to be a landlord now. Probably our biggest legal fees are related to housing. It's absolutely illegal to use drugs in our properties. You have to notice and follow up, but there are kids living there. There are a lot of kids in that property. And we take very seriously that responsibility for our tenants. One of our properties that has formerly homeless families in it has a lot of kids. There are challenges at times there, but that bar of we're very familiar with the law and what needs to be done and what we're allowed to do in terms of notices. And that's a huge one. Any life safety issues that affect other tenants, we've had to take some very hard lines on. You know, you're not allowed to have lots of visitors who aren't otherwise on your lease or other people. You're not allowed to have pets, multiples of them that aren't on your lease. So there are ways that you can help improve the climate in the community. And that's what the tenants who are doing everything right, that are there, right, deserve to have management that supports them in their good behavior. They're being penalized right now by the lack of management and maintenance in that property, and everybody's paying for it. Like you said, we talked to neighbors around the property who are like, it's loud and stuff late at night. And it's, you know, I do not have a magic wand. It's not going to be magically perfect, but I think we know for sure that long distance offsite management, which is what it's had for the last 24 years, hasn't worked. And I appreciate, Mike, from your experience in working with BMAC, that we're going to be here, we'll be on site, but there will be property managers and maintenance as part of the team here. We have an office here. You know, we're not, I don't want to do anything that causes community harm in any way. So we're doing this because we think we can do it better than it's been. And we think this community deserves safe, healthy, affordable housing.
Where are we at with that fund?
We have, about almost the 10 in it. I can't, it seems like there's a small amount that came out of it. I'm not even sure what it was. Let me look. And we can,
You want mine? I have it right now.
sure, since I have, there it is. I found it now.
Okay, never mind.
Let's see.
Looks like it'll look too, but.
Oh, it's okay.
I think I bring my spectacles.
Yeah, it's at 9,650. And I mean, we could take $350 out of our reserve to make the 10,000 if we wanted to. I don't remember what, we spent $350 from it. I don't even know what that was for. Either of you have any memory of that?
Yes, I remember doing it, but I don't know.
Yeah.
It was some kind of community,
Something,
something.
yeah.
Some
Anyway,
kind of community.
almost 10.
Don't we
Close
have a significant portion of that allocated for the chamber?
No, we changed that to the economic development line item.
Okay.
The community support is just purely decisions like this. It's not, there is no predetermined spending. Yeah, it's just wide open. So yeah, we've got chamber and club and SBDC, all of those payments that we make every year are out of economic development.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, if you were to purchase it, of course, everybody's got to leave.
That's what, sorry.
Everybody has to leave because you got to remodel it, right?
So good question. It's part of what we've been talking
Okay.
about in terms of what the rehab plan would be. Some of the big stuff we can do without displacing people, because also like it's a lot of people and where else are
Yeah,
they
well-
gonna go, right? So the big stuff we can do and keep people in, like roofing, it needs new siding, it needs new windows. We shouldn't have to displace people for some of the big elements. And then it would just be doing it unit by unit as people move out. So we won't be able to do it in one fell swoop, which might be, you know, might save some money up front, but it's so disruptive to those families. We don't want to make it any harder on them that it would be already. Yeah, exactly. There's
no
not.
housing available.
Exactly. So that's our thinking, and that's how we're planning in terms of the pro forma we're putting together. now for the rehab is like, what's a reasonable cycle to expect that? Also doing it as a smaller job will spread the money around in the community, because then we can use more local folks who can go in and turn one unit. If, you know, these are really, they're big buildings. It would be hard otherwise if you wanted to do it top to bottom, you'd be bringing in outside folks.
So that's just a couple other questions. One, is there would be opportunity to, so at least people, whether they work or don't work or whatever, is there opportunity to be involved with that project doing the work? Or does it have to be contracted journeyman type work?
It does have to be.
Okay, because it's a loan.
Yeah. Mhm.
So that was one question, whether or not there's a workforce that you could create within that.
It's a good question, though.
Right.
We do have job training programs that we're always looking for.
Or apprenticeship programs that maybe somebody's living in the building, they're doing a bunch of work on a building, the contractor is a valid contractor and they're able to hire an apprentice or train someone in a trade where they don't have to live there very long because they get a trade and they go buy another
Yeah.
house. So that would be cool if it's
Mhm.
an option on that part. And that was the other question is when is it full?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes, I'm lucky that's-
And that's the other thing is when one's empty, then you gut it, fix it, move somebody into that. What if they don't want to move? I mean, do they
They
have
probably,
options?
yeah, we wouldn't necessarily,
Or you
move
would just-
people from unit to unit. It would just be waiting to take in the next tenant. And so that's part again too, and why this financing from the state is helpful, because they can also give you like some years of leniency on when you have to start paying back your loan, because it means your rental income is super disruptive for the time. You're not gonna get 100% of your rental income, which is already discounted because you're doing affordable housing. So you've got to model out like what's a reasonable
Yeah. it's-
way to think
it's gonna
about.
Take
what that
20
term-
years to get through all, because
Not, But
what if people aren't moving out and you don't want to disrupt them? So you go in and fix, basically you'd be fixing life safety stuff, right? Electrical,
Sure.
plumbing, those type of things, making sure it's,
Mhm.
make sure life safety stuff is taken care of in your basics. Regardless, right? You'd have to do that
exactly.
and disrupt them. Because you can't say, well, look, get you, when you move out, we'll fix it. You're gonna have to live that way.
Yeah, no.
That's kind of defeats the purpose. There is risk. Always risk. You know,
Also risk when you don't.
there's risk of not, and, I don't know, if we're in a good spot, it might be worth the risk of not just financially, but commitment that we talk about. We want to improve the housing in Dayton, there's other avenues we talked about, type deal. So that's kind of how I look at it is, okay, $10,000 risk, a letter, okay, cool. Show some commitment, and then it also gives us kind of a partnership and some, we get some skin in the game, not saying we're gonna do anything, but have conversations. Hey, we see this, when we signed on to this deal, it's still operating the same way, maybe some conversations. So some of that, we can still have some of those conversations to protect what we are doing and support with our constituents' money, type deal. So, that's kind of how I'm looking at it, type deal. So I'm, like I said, there's risk that it's gonna continue the way it is. But I'm telling you, if we don't do anything, it's guaranteed.
Guaranteed.
Yeah, the other thing, just to clarify too about the ask tonight, is a pledge of the support. We still have to perform to get, your last dollars at the end of this, if we could pull it all together. And we need to make sure the state will support us enough, because I want that high quality housing and I want them committing with us to fund all of that. It's easy to purchase buildings. It's hard to run them and do it
That's the
well.
challenge and that's the challenge that I present to BMAC is don't just supply a building and for a warehouse to warehouse people that can't afford other places.
No, exactly.
Let's, like you were talking about earlier, let's develop that where we continue down the road where we enhance their lives or what have you, maybe. And then someone else that we continue that, because otherwise we're gonna be the same damn spot We are not out today.
Yeah, that's what I say to my
Maybe
team
more.
all the time too, is like, our job isn't Band-Aids, our job is to change lives. Like, what's the truly transformative thing we can do? And I think that's why my board and team are so excited about this project. Like, we know that doing this and doing it well can have a transformative community impact. It also is part of us saying, you know, we say we serve Columbia and Garfield. You know, are you seeing that? And I don't think you are seeing it the way you should see it from us. So this is also part of our commitment to saying, like, we have services and assets. We have the ability to bring funding and investment and economic development dollars into your community too. Like, how are we gonna do that?
That
And
does,
I appreciate your partnership. Flag,
yeah,
with
that does bring a good point. It's not just us partnering to help with that, but it is VMAC coming into our county, our community and saying,
Hiring local
how
companies.
do we get better in it? So, I mean, if we're in a good spot, yeah, you know, it's not something we plan necessarily. A pledge would, if everything else falls to in place, right? Then the pledge would be, then we would say, all right, you've done all this, you cross the Ts, dot the Is, it looks like it needs to go. I'm leaning towards okay with the pledge.
Right, so the pledge would be transferable of actual funds once the financing is secured.
Do we need to make a motion?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
I would, yeah.
I would make a motion that we sign the support letter. And it also would include that there be the pledge with $10,000 if all your ducks get well.
Yeah, I'll second that. We'll have a little discussion. I'll second that motion.
Right, so we've got a motion and a second to sign the support letter and to pledge $10,000 towards the purchase of Knobloch Apartments, which would be available to BMAC once they have secured financing. With that motion second, do we have further discussion?
When we,
I was listening to you so intently, I was like, what happened? Gosh, what was it?
I know we've talked about housing on our own property. We're gonna run into the same issues there of tenants. I mean, I've owned some rentals throughout my life, and I don't own them anymore because there's no fun to owner of an operator in homes. But I also have, I would say, 6 of my employees currently that I would say are unhoused. What they're doing is sharing housing, still living with their parents, and these are adults.
And they work, they're
And
working.
they're working hard, they're working 40 hours a week. And most of them would like to rent a place. There's no place to rent that they can afford. I mean, if you go down Dayton Avenue, the new duplex that's down there, he's wanting $1,600 a month.
Don't be stingy, give them a raise.
I have every year.
Oh, I think the state of Washington, yeah.
Anyway, but we have to do something in our community. Pretty soon we won't have any workforce here. And we have to have places for people that, and I'm not just saying affordable housing, just plain housing, we don't have. But we need affordable housing because if we kick, or that place burns down in the next month, where are all those people gonna go?
Somebody
I
write it
mean,
down.
that's scary.
It's a sign of you're getting older when you write something down. You get
It's a
it.
good strategy.
Is there, have you done this before, locally? That, is there an opportunity to kind of cruise by an area that you guys have done and saying, hey, we did this in 2005, whatever, and this is what it is currently?
Yeah, I can even send you all the report. All of our housing right now is in Waitsburg and Walla Walla. So like I
Okay.
said, we are overdue to be out here. The largest property we own is Whitman Court Apartments. It's 49 apartments. It's senior housing. It's on Isaac
What is
Street
it?
in
Whitman?
Whitman Court. It's on Isaac Street across from John Wheatland's Bakery on the corner of Ash. So kind of the bowling alley and the
Okay.
Walker Furniture. It's on that corner of
Okay.
Walla Walla. So that's one of the biggest ones. You can see our office, which we built. It's now on 8 East Cherry Street. That was our East work,
Cherry Street.
8 East Cherry. But I'm happy to also just, we have like a one pager that shows all
Yeah,
18
you-
units and the address.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
just due diligence on it and say, hey, you know what, a lot of times, man, you can. You can spend 5 minutes driving by a place, you can pretty much figure out what the hell's going on there, so, I would like to do that,
And I know what they've done because I worked with them.
Yeah, I know.
And exactly, I know you know, and that's what I think is great, and I don't know all their properties, I only knew the ones. I had to call them up, and say, what's going on here? And then how they fixed it. So.
Well, I think the chances of the property improving to extend a lot better in your hands than in the present,
Mhm.
present state,
Here, here.
you know, it's just been going downhill for years now, and I think the community would really like and appreciate to see some change in that property and see improvement and better management, and along with better management, you get, you know, better tenants, you know.
law enforcement would probably appreciate it as well.
No, I haven't talked to Sheriff yet, but I will.
Well, and that was the other side, because I worked with BMAC. I know the Dennis Lipiani did when he was the chief out of College Place, and I know that the Wall Police Force worked with BMAC. And it was more of a community effort to make sure bad stuff wasn't happening in those properties, and it takes that though. BMAC can't go arrest people that are outside smoking crack or whatever.
Right.
But the sheriff can.
And a lot of times in small communities, they don't even have the resources to be able to do that all the time. So like you said, if you breed that and foster that.
Yeah.
And you take care of each other as a neighborhood,
Yeah.
then they do it
Better,
themselves.
better.
You know, so hopefully we'll get there. I'm gonna pray for the best.
Yeah.
I think it's a small investment, for the whole thing. And we'll go from there. So I appreciate the conversation.
Thank you. so
Then the opportunity, even though it's, you know, it's not something that I knew going in, that I was like, oh, okay, cool. But I guess we'll put our money where our mouth is and see if we can make some progress there, or if it comes to fruition.
Yeah.
Don't get ahead of the cart yet.
Yeah, but we're really excited.
Well, I feel grateful that we have the funds to do it, because we're in
And
a
that's the
spot
other
right
thing,
now.
is
Yeah.
we're in a spot to be able to do that, and it's not always that way.
No.
So,
I call for the question.
Okay, well, if there's no further discussion, we have a motion to sign the support letter and to pledge $10,000. We'll go ahead and put it to a vote. All those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
There's a letter for you to sign.
that's the other part, is I wanted to actually see the letter that.
It was, yeah, it was there. It's in your second page. There you go,
Oh, this one.
That's the
Yep.
one.
above. Danielle sent me all the stuff to make it fast.
Yeah. And sorry, sometimes real estate is not on like a nice slow schedule, but when we need things.
Well, and so you know, the county does have. Is it the REIT, the real estate tax? There's some fund that the county has that they're supposed to. Designate funds for housing of this nature, so Danielle is asking them for a significantly bigger chunk.
Yeah, document recording fees and other
Yeah.
funds I'll go towards this, so
When are you doing that?
that's on Monday
Okay.
at 9:40, I think, on the agenda, which is my birthday, so I'm asking anybody who wants to come.
Well, I really look forward to seeing some positive changes from that place.
Yeah, there will be ribbon cuttings and celebrations,
Good,
when it
and
gets to that.
thank you for coming and doing something here, because it's been a long time coming, it really has.
So overdue, and we appreciate the really good partnership with
Yeah.
everyone.
Could I ask you one last quick question before we go on? Why does a place need new windows after 20 years?
They weren't done right.
They weren't done well? Gosh,
Yeah, the siding is like P1.
just built cheaply.
There's a lot of renovations can be done while tenants are in the units, can't they?
The exterior one should be,
Right.
And
Yeah.
probably the life safety stuff, the
Mhm.
big thing happens.
yeah, for sure, you just have to do that.
Well, when you get affordable, housing, sometimes you get what you pay for.
But there's no excuse for not doing it right first.
Like, they take more maintenance.
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Here you go, Danielle.
Do you want to?
I don't think I need a copy. There you go. Look at that. It's magic.
Can I say thank you?
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to our last item,
Dash.
which is State Development Task Force.
And I had a personal medical issue because I couldn't make it today.
That's an easy report.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't now. You took me by surprise. I'd have to think. What did we talk about? The, oh, the trees on Main Street. Yeah, the city decided to go ahead and replant the London Plains
Mhm.
in those 3 spots and then took out the unmatched tree in front of the old Columbia REA building and put in a London Plane. They talked about the facade grants. There are 5 of them. One fun piece of news is that Alicia and Bo they have been able to buy the building
Oh, excellent.
that Locally Nourished is
Yeah.
in. And it has, so the facade grant will help replace the windows. The window is the original glass.
Right.
And I don't know if you've ever seen it in the winter. It's just a big drippy frozen mess.
Yeah.
So that they have to put in significant amount of money, but the grant will help match it and they'll be able to put in weatherproof, big
Thermal
glass
paint,
windows, yeah.
glowy.
So that's a fun one, that one, and then there's a building at Fourth and Main, the corner of Fourth and Main. Which the sidewall is falling down, so the deal is. we Give them the facade grant when the wall is fixed. We're not gonna give a grant to a building whose wall is falling down, so.
Right.
And then, do you remember the other ones?
Um,
Was my dad's place? Did he have- No,
Main Street, no.
oh, Main Street Salons is one. And then, there's another one that guy, the same guy that owns the building at Fourth and Main owns. Old laundromat building, I think it's the old building.
Buildings, but I don't know. what
Yeah, the old
it was.
laundromat building, and then I don't recall the 5th.
Hardware, hotel.
Oh, Hotel Hardware, yeah. So, what else? Can you think of anything else?
I can't remember.
Yeah,
String of pearls, I'm sure got problem.
Oh, yeah, talk about the,
not much. Street corridor, they talked about parking and
yeah.
those are the highlights.
Great.
Yeah.
Sorry, I wasn't able to do that.
That's okay. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, just once in a while.
Okay.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
All right, that brings us to our final public comment period before we close this down. So anybody have any public comment in the room? Go ahead.
I'm Melissa Bryan, Dayton, Washington. So I'm just curious if any other organizations have been sought out to potentially do housing out here. We've talked a lot about, you guys have talked a lot about what you want done out there and what kind of housing you're thinking about putting out there and even putting infrastructure out there. So I just wonder if any movement has been done other than common.
The only thing that one thing I've done is talking to a design firm that would be able to help put together. It's one of the people that responded to the SOQ
Mhm.
to be able to put together what could work there. You know, kind of like the Port of Bellingham did, where they had a mix of the Mercy housing, whatever it was, they have like higher end condos and then some apartments, I think, in the middle. So trying to find somebody who could look at that piece of property, because it feels to me like that's what the other ports have done is they've had a plan. And then they go to a developer or these entities. So that's what I've been doing. Yeah, is talking to someone who they say they have the expertise to help us figure out what could be done with that 7 acres. Yeah.
It's always good to have a plan. for-
Well, you kind of have to, but I mean, it sure would be a lot easier if the private developer just came and bought it, built houses,
Yeah.
but yeah, hasn't happened.
But I
yet.
think, going forward and developing a plan of what we expect and what we would like it to
Yeah.
look like and
Yeah.
the vision that we have or.
And maybe some developer after we have the plan would go.
Oh.
"Hey, I can-"
Then they're more likely to come in
Yeah,
and
yeah,
do it, because
exactly.
they got the
Yeah,
plan. Yeah.
and they know infrastructure is gonna be out there, but I mean, that's a huge one right now. Hard to build a house if you can't put the power, water, sewer.
Right. Okay, any other public comment? Any public comment on Zoom? With that, time is 7:58, 7:53,
6:50?
6:53, sorry. 6:53. And with that, we'll call this meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.